Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And we're doing exactly that today. I want to thank my guest co-host here, JJ Levinsky, for the introduction to Larry Yatch today with SEAL Team Leaders. Welcome to both of you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
When the music was just playing, I realized I think I interviewed Robert, but you and I didn't get to do an interview together, right? When you first...
I don't know.
I can't remember. So
I thought you picked me out of an FBI lineup or something.
I did, both of you, but that's a whole nother conversation in the second half hour of this show.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this the rated version?
This is, yes. Yeah, we're just going to ease into the, the
now I know.
Yeah, right? Yes,
so
now you're prepared. So JJ is the host of, or co-host of Mac and Blue, which is one of our newest shows. And you were the one who said, you really ought to get to know Larry. So I would love for you first to introduce yourself and what you do professionally. And then if you want to give a brief introduction to Larry, and then we'll let Larry fill in the blanks afterwards.
Yeah, sure. So JJ Levinsky, president of Blue Wave General Contracting in the Valley here. And I was fortunate enough to get introduced to you as a guest first. And then it was, I guess, my face for radio precipitated and asked to come be a co-host for doing our podcast, which was Building Arizona, which we wanted to connect everyone related to building Arizona. Everything from, capital and architects, engineers, builders, economic development, anything you can imagine in that capacity. You and I also had a connection, Karen, based on my journey with Larry's team after I was fortunate enough to meet him, and he and his team have walked me through some really pivotal things in my own journey as a leader, but probably more importantly, finding out about myself, what my strengths, weaknesses, my truths, my untruths, all those kind of things, which Larry will probably touch on. And he and I were fortunate enough to meet over 10 years ago. He and his wife, when we were both based in Minneapolis, I met him and Annie through a YPO forum, actually. And then we rekindled our acquaintance last year about this time. And I've been working with him and his team ever since. And, I'll continue to opine during this interview, but transformative is an understatement of what he and his team have allowed me and my team to do. So can't say enough good things.
I remember that's what you said to me. So you and I, you had been a guest at our studio before you made the commitment to come and join us and do your own gig.
Yeah.
And you and I were chatting and getting to know each other professionally and personally, and just shared some of that growth. And I remember you saying,
I'll go deeper.
Yeah.
I'll go into the woo-woo stuff.
Too, because I'm all about the woo.
You were up on the whiteboard as we were doing it,
right.
If you want to call it a shred of like our brainstorming. And I felt your energy in the room. And afterwards, I asked everyone else to leave. And I said, hey, Karen.
What's up?
I said, did you feel that?
Yeah.
And you were like, well, I don't think you said it was a hemorrhoid, but, I had that effect, okay?
Yeah. And so that's when you shared that
I shared my journey with Larry, yes.
Yes. So, well, that's a heck of an introduction.
Very cryptic, though.
Yeah.
Like for someone that has no idea what you guys are talking about.
All they heard was woo, and then they turned off their...
No, but Larry, the key was, how you had helped me see the light of my own spirituality and connection to everything that was one universe and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So give us the backstory, because you come from a very... I'm going to make the assumption, a very different background in your career and professionally to what you're doing now. And I'm sure it all lines up, but introduce yourself if you would, and clean up whatever we said about you.
Clean up on aisle 5.
Right.
There's quite a bit of holes to fill up, you guys.
Yeah.
So, okay, where do I start? We're talking about...
Well, just who you are in the background.
I know. I'm just to give a little framing for all these people, right? So you're talking about truths and untruths and spiritual connections and all of that. And then when they hear my background, it's going to be a big difference. So my background originally is as an officer in the SEAL teams, spending 10 years in combat. And then now I run a consulting company that does high-level consulting for businesses, which would... when you're listening to this, you're like, how the hell does that connect to what these two are talking about? And that's really usually something we get into a lot later. But from the perspective of performance of a team, our company is one of the best in the world at getting teams to coordinate action at a high level. We would get into companies and do that, and we would see them grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So normally it was rapid growing companies that hit barricades are the ones that came to us. We would reestablish that growth trajectory. And then at some point, they would either level off or actually start to go down. And structurally, there was nothing structurally wrong with the company because that's what we fixed. And that bothered me. I mean, it bothered me that a company that has no reason to slow down would actually have these plateaus or even these dips. And what I realized was the same language patterns that existed in combat veterans were being used by the CEO. And that's where I made the connection that the biggest limitation to growth of a structurally sound company are the unresolved traumas of the CEO. And that's something I've never heard anyone say anywhere.
Oh.
And when we started leveraging the same tools that I had used originally to heal my post-traumatic stress from combat and was leveraging with people that had traditional trauma, right? War, sexual assault, massive injuries, loss of loved ones, those things, I started leveraging that with CEOs that had never identified with being traumatized.
Wow.
We saw like explosive growth would be putting it lightly, not only in their life, but in the business. And that's what
Yeah, and
JJ's
I
talking about.
I went through it.
Yeah.
And so I can attest to everything he's talking about. You go in blind as a baby out of the womb, and you come out with going, oh yeah, it's all been right there.
Yes. Now I can see.
Yeah.
Now I can see how it's all connected. Now I understand the matrix.
Exactly. And so that helps give some background on how does an officer in the SEAL teams that runs a company that creates high performance in large organizations start talking about spirituality, trauma, and the like. It's connecting some worlds that I don't think anyone's ever connected before.
And so needed.
Very much so. And why do we focus this trauma healing on CEOs? Because we can have the greatest impact, right? We change one CEO's life. Yes, their life changed, their family's life changes, but because they create the culture of the organization, the traumas of the CEO exist in the traumas of everyone within it, meaning someone who doesn't share that trauma pattern will not stay in the organization and leave. So you end up with this like collective group of trauma from the top. And when you fix the top, it just goes all the way through the organization. So we believe that we can have the greatest change in the world by healing CEOs, not only on the economic front, but on the personal front for them and their organizations. And what's hilarious is that's the smallest part of our company. Like that's not our core piece. Like that's the small part of what we do, but it is one of the most unique.
Is it the foundation?
It's weird. It's either the foundation. Let me say it more of the entry point, or it becomes not so much the exit point, but at the end, right? So every entrepreneur that we've ever worked with, and we've worked with at this point, well over 100. So this isn't one or two off. Like there's quite a few. Not one of them identifies as being traumatized beforehand.
Right.
And they definitely don't attribute every problem in their business and their lives to them. Like, so
Touché.
That's another one.
Right.
Right.
It's everybody else.
Yep.
It's not me.
And so there's a lot of convincing on that front. So either they come to us with amazing accomplishments, amazing businesses, amazing lives that they are completely unfulfilled in, or they come to us saying, I keep having this same crash or problem or limitation and nothing I'm doing is fixing it. And at that point, they'll start there. Or oftentimes their egos are so big that it's not my fault. It's everyone else's fault.
Yep.
We'll fix the company and they still have issues. And at that point, there's no one else to look at. And so then it can be the exit, if you will, of the whole company's fixed. Now it's time to fix you.
Yeah.
What, Larry, for the relatability of the listener and the viewer, pardon my French here, Karen, you're this badass SEAL for 10 years. Bridge the gap for the listener of that experience to how you got to this? I mean, you touched on it, but you did it in about 10 seconds. So because everyone is, oh, you were a SEAL. Okay, well, we're not here to talk about your SEAL life, but yet what in that environment and that life led to where you are now?
Well, first, I didn't choose to not be a SEAL, right? That's a big one. I got injured. So I got medically retired after 10 years of service. And my service was in the Middle East from 1998 to 2008. So very, very busy time doing a lot of pretty big and dangerous things. So for me, I, from third grade, saw Top Gun, decided I want to be a fighter pilot, and found out about the Naval Academy. All the best fighter pilots went there. So from third grade, that's what I'm doing. I found out about the SEALs about seventh grade, determined that fighter pilots were pansies. I needed to be a Navy SEAL, and went to the Naval Academy, went through SEAL training, and then went to SEAL Team 3, which is, like I said, responsible for the Middle East, and then had my career. And my career is a very busy career. Got injured a number of times eventually. Of botched surgery ended my career. And I was laying in the hospital with no purpose. Like, I had no plans to get out. That's all I'd ever wanted to do. I had this perception that all I was good at was destruction. Like, I broke things professionally and people for a living. Like, that's what I did. Not a lot of job offers for, especially someone that
part of a regular PTA conversation.
Some of the job offers, but they're not ones we would talk about. They're kind of
and it being broken, right? So I was physically broken. So all the traditional things of contracting, CIA, that stuff, law enforcement are out. And it was my business partner now at the time that she has a master's in international security and anti-terrorism from Georgetown. So she was working in the intelligence fields while I was out on the front lines. And it was her that identified that my particular form of leadership was based very strongly on empowerment through education, through training my people to lead well, so I didn't have to. And that's where she came up with the concept that we could continue protecting the world through education versus through our frontline efforts. And so that was the start of our entrepreneurial career in training companies. And we built and ran a number of successful training companies in different domains that eventually led to team optimization, team performance, leadership development, and the like.
And then the underbelly of it, that's the word I always
trauma.
use, is trauma. I am right there with you.
Yeah.
I think JJ knows this. I opened Business RadioX, this particular studio. I'm a licensed partner 5 years ago because I have been coaching and consulting. We can call it life coaching.
Right.
I hate that term because anybody could hang a shingle and not have proper training. And the more I worked with CEOs, community leaders, as in mayors and folks who run cities, attorneys and doctors, the folks who had a lot of weight with the people they cared for, very well respected often, but could really, to what you're talking about, if we can help CEOs understand the value of what they bring and heal their trauma and bring their whole organization, the people they serve, to a place of harmony and success and clarity, we're making a difference in the world. That's actually, in a very different way, how I opened Business RadioX, because I was finding that those folks were not referring me, even though I was on speed dial and they were saying, I finally had that conversation, or I've cleaned this up, or this and that. So I knew we were succeeding with the support I was giving them one-on-one in my consulting. And I went to my coach at the time and I said, they're not referring me, and I've been always by referral only. Something's got to change. And so we just created Business RadioX, an opportunity for me to leverage, right, and become more visible and have more impact. And now, 5 years in, this is the opportunity for me, which why I love this conversation, because now I've got the credibility,
platform,
and a most recent, very visible experience with my own trauma and healing, that it's all just kind of collided and said, wow, the time is now. So I love that you're already doing the work.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear your story and to be able to make that progression. And so that was how we got into team optimization, leadership development. And we were doing it in a very traditional way. So we were doing traditional as big companies. So generally, like, smallest we deal with would be 20 or 30 million a year in revenue. I mean, so it was much larger than that, usually in the 100 million, 200, 300, a couple $1 billion companies. And we would do in-person training, and we would train all managers at every level. And we were having, I mean, we were producing good accomplishments. Didn't feel very successful in that it was kind of a miserable life. It was myself, 2 other SEALs. We were traveling a ton. You'd get into a room at a $1 billion company, every manager, that's like 600 people. So you get in a room in front of 200-300 people at a time, and maybe 10% want to be there. The others are told to be there based on their CEO or their manager told them they had to be there. So for the first 2 or 3 months, you're just creating enough credibility and need that they're going to pay attention. And at the end of it, we would have raving reviews from HR, and they'd see differences in the company, but we knew that we only took like a foot, right? Like we only made like 2 feet of difference from what we could do. And so 6 years ago, we went full live virtual. So we fired every client. We closed all 3 businesses down except for this, what would be a consulting business. And in that, we had 1 client because we had a contract, and that's it, and started over and built it from scratch. And we identify that if we went live virtual, and this is 3-4 years before COVID, so no one knew what Zoom was. Like we would run classes, and it'd be 2 or 3 classes before everyone could get their video camera on at the same time. And it was an uphill fight to get companies to believe that virtual training done live was as effective, if not much more effective than in person. And it gave us the opportunity to mix companies. So we would have mixed classes where we'd have just the people that wanted to learn from 4 different companies in a class at the same time. And the results were awesome.
Was the catalyst for this decision based on, gee, we don't want to travel anymore, and we want to have a stronger, greater impact, and we know how to do that?
I'd say the primary driver was our life was miserable.
Yeah.
Like we're running 3 companies, and anyone would look at us and say, look at how successful they are, what they're doing. At that point in time, we were impacting 15,000, 20,000 people a year. We were in contact with 20,000 people a year. How many were we impacting what we would consider a check mark? Maybe 2%. And
the beautiful part of this conversation from where I'm witnessing is that you are a mirror to your clientele.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right? And that's one of the things we always want to have people take a look at. Like what is reflecting back to you, and where are you whether it's light or dark? Yeah, that's incredible.
Then we were saying we aren't living our principles, our basic principle on success.
How can we expect them to?
Yep. The traditional understanding of success is that it's setting goals or objectives and meeting it. And if you set goals or objectives and consistently meet those, you're successful. But if you do that with misery and suffering, you are not successful. And that we redefine success as an optimized daily experience that's sustainable over time. And when we did that, we looked at ours and said, ours is not sustainable. It is not optimized. We need to redo this. And so we risked a ton. Like we risked a ton in doing this. And then building for those first couple of years was hard because it was an uphill fight every time we were selling. And then we'd have great results. And that was another fight. It required us to get really good at distribution of content, because when you're delivering in that live format, you have no slop. Like you can't just be in the front of people. You can waste a lot of time in front of a big audience with a whiteboard, but doing it in a virtual format, you got to keep their attention. And we had to do it with mixed company. So it had to be fundamental information, not specific information, which is fundamentally sound content is much harder to develop than specific content. And we had to get good at having a remote team. So we went from 40 employees in 3 different businesses, all in person, to just the 2 of us. And then we started hiring people all over the country. One of our, Kariman, which you know, is in Tucson. She worked for us for 2 years before I ever met her, right? Our operations, Nick, who runs more or less runs the company, I didn't meet him in person for 1.5 years. And so then COVID hit and everything changed, right? For us, it got so easy.
I was just going to ask, everything changed for you. I'm thinking, I'm leaning in because you had already set the precedence and worked out a good portion of the kinks, while the rest of us were like, oh no, we got to go remote.
And so a couple of things. One, like we had a class start in April of 2019.
Okay.
We had one person not show up for that class based on the fact that he ran a hospital and he just was busy. But that's when everything shut down for everyone. And we're running one of our biggest classes and everyone shows up and we didn't skip a beat. So there's about a month or two of no one wanted to spend money. But then come June, now all of a sudden companies are having to deal with stressed employees, right? That are under stress, operating environments they've never operated in remotely. All the weaknesses of coordination of action show up in spades, and we know how to fix. That's what we do, is fix that stuff.
Yep.
So it was a whole different world for us. We just got busier and busier and busier, and it was weird. In the middle of that, we were joking that what's wrong with us that the new COVID norm, when it was in the heat of that, was our norm. Like nothing changed. Like was still in my office in my pajamas doing my work. I didn't go outside.
I invented the paradigm, by the way.
Yeah.
Suit up top and pajamas
exactly.
and bunny slippers on the bottom.
Yeah. Business on the top.
Yeah.
Party and
It's like the inverse mullet, right?
Right.
And nothing changed, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really helped refine that what we were doing was right, and it enabled us to get out to more people. And then the trauma stuff showed up 2-3 years after that.
Okay, so this is even prior.
Oh yeah.
All what you're sharing with us is prior to really honing in on trauma is paramount.
Yep. So 6 years ago, we made that shift where we shut everything down and sold the other companies or shut them down. Mm-hmm. Everything we did. And the core driver for this, which is kind of unique, if I would say, what are we the best at? We're the best at behavior change. So systematically implementing changes in behavior for an individual or a group. Mm-hmm. And in essence, that's leadership, right? Leadership is where you influence the behavior of another towards a better outcome. We're very good at that and very systematic at it. And what we knew was that our lack of success was due to our subconscious behavior, right? Our conscious choices were good, but the vast majority of the choices you make on a daily basis are subconscious. And when I say vast, I mean by orders of magnitude. And we knew that the biggest driver to a subconscious behavior is the environment, right? A subconscious behavior is a reaction. A reaction means I get a stimulus and then an automatic program kicks out a response. So you can either reprogram the program or you can change the stimulus. Mm-hmm. And so we knew that if we stayed in the same environment and wanting to make these changes in our lives, we would have recreated subconsciously the same thing. So we set forth to change everything, and all the way to the point of we sold everything we owned. We had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, 2 boys, and we said that every 4 to 6 months we were going to move. So we lived completely mobily. We had nothing we owned. We'd live in furnished Airbnbs, just places that we wanted to live. And as soon as our behavior started to create the same problems, we'd shift to another place. And we did that for 3 years on top of while we were building the company, solely to live what we teach, that to reprogram our subconscious behaviors, we have to modify our environment to create the right environment, to create better choices, which then reprogram the programs. And so that was it. So that's not as simple an answer as we decided to change the business model.
No, it speaks volumes to me. And JJ keeps looking over at me. He's like, I knew she'd love this conversation.
I knew you'd back out on it. No pun intended.
Totally. I'm fascinated. So you spoke a little bit. Is it Annie? Is that?
Yes.
Yes. And so she's your wife and business partner?
So we were married for 14 years. We've been separate. Our marriage has been over for 2 years, but we work completely hand in hand with the business and parenting. We identified that we've been better partners than lovers since we were married, because we're like perfect halves of the same coin. Mm-hmm. Like she's heads and I'm tails. Our perceptions of the world are completely opposite, which enable us to completely back each other up in every way, shape, and form. And since we first met, we had a huge mission. Like we're driven to accomplish big things together. And we thought that was because we were married, but in reality, it was just because we're really good partners.
I love it.
And so,
another great testimony to doing the work.
Oh, for sure. And that led to the trauma stuff. So as we're making this change, the changes we're making, we identified, one, we needed the subconscious change, but the biggest thing was our traumas. My post-traumatic stress was very obvious where it came from. Hers, not so much, but she couldn't have been attracted to me if she was whole and healthy, right? Her trauma picked my trauma, and that's where we connected. And so over these 5-6 years, not only did we make it a point to change the business and change our lives, but we knew that we had to change ourselves and heal our traumas in order to be the partners we wanted to be to each other and to be in the business that we needed to be. So that's where the trauma stuff worked. It was on ourselves. And as we healed ourselves, we started to see the patterns in others. And I'm a systems guy. I can't do things more than twice without wanting some system for it. So
and then sharing it,
and then leverage it for others. And so that's where I started to put systems to post-traumatic stress, right? How to heal post-traumatic stress. One, how to explain it, to understand what it truly is and help others do that. And then more importantly, reprogram it. And I do it linguistically through linguistic tools.
So on that, Larry, since I'm one of the privileged people that gets to see behind the scenes on your systems, let the listeners and viewers know that you do have a new book out.
Oh, yes.
And so shameless self-promotion, go for it.
Well, that was JJ promotion.
Oh, okay.
And it just came out.
May 10th,
2
weeks ago. So super excited. I was very, very careful with writing a book, right? A lot of SEALs write books, and I didn't want to write the same book that every other SEAL writes. This is not a book of stories. It isn't a book of, here's my experiences in the SEALs for you to be entertained in. This book is based on over 14 years of working in the civilian world on businesses and having to live in the gap between what I got to experience as one of the highest performing operators and one of the highest performing units in the world to the absolute dysfunction that is civilian business. And being able to see that gap, it's taken me 10 years to figure out how to close it. And that's what the book is how to close the gap between the high performance of the SEALs in business from someone that has built and run business. And, I love Jocko and Leif with Extreme Ownership, but that book is a book about SEAL leadership. Now you can take it and apply it to business. It isn't a book about business leadership from a SEAL. That's the difference. This is a book about business leadership from a guy that happened to be a SEAL.
And what kind of feedback are you getting so far? I'd imagine people are just ecstatic about it.
My unique skill is distilling complex things into a principle that you feel like you're remembering instead of learning. And
he's like butter, isn't he? Just
I don't know. Yeah, definitely not margarine, but butter. Yeah,
it's just so that's exactly what you're doing, even for me. I love it. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, please, I'll take that any day.
Let me chime in because one of the main reasons that I reconnected with Larry was I had gone down the Jocko and Leif, and I know his fraternity actually pretty well. It's amazing that once you're connected to one SEAL, it seems like it's just awkward. For as limited as their fraternity is, you're exposed to a lot of you guys.
Yeah.
And so I'd read all of, whether it's his podcast, books, whatever, both of them, and even some other ancillary people that were involved. And that's when I reached back out to Larry because I was like, I love those guys, but that isn't what I want. That isn't what I want. So I can also tell you that, not only have I read his book, but we as a company are, Larry, help me put it in context because I don't even know. I would say that we're about a third of the way of our own implementation in our company through your book. Is that a fair assessment?
Right. So the other thing that I wanted to do is I didn't want to put a book out that was theory, right? Concepts. I love that because that's how my brain works, is to break the stuff down. So I could do that with a lot of confidence. I wanted to put out a book that was based on leveraging it with real companies and real people. So the book is based on a program that we leverage with companies to implement what is high performance into the company from a leadership perspective all the way down to the lowest level of in the hierarchy within a company. And so we'll do implementations from 6 months to a year with companies, and it follows the whole structure of the book. And just, we're talking about the book. I always like to give this warning, and I give the warning in the book. I'll do it again here. This will hurt your head, right? Like it is dense. I don't hold anything back. It's not like I'm giving you a taste of it so that you'll come and get training. I give everything. And I don't waste any words. There's no fluff. There's a couple stories, but the stories are like 2% of anything. It's going to hurt your head, because that gap I was talking about between SEAL performance and business performance it's a 180-degree shift. Like in most of these concepts, we're not talking about you're missing something. We're talking about you're looking at it completely backwards. And those paradigm shifts, it's like, for me, it's like crack watching someone have it. Like, especially when I speak, I'll see it. And it's the same thing. Like, people will like shock and they look up and to the right. There's something to do with the brain in that, but you can see it when someone's paradigm shifts. And I love it, because once your paradigm shifts, you can't look at the world the same way, and you can't act in the world the same way. And that's what we attempt to do, that on about 6 different core points within the book. And even if it's just one, you're good. But most people, it's 2 or 3. So what I usually get is, like you were saying, I get this thing of, I finally have words for something that I always felt was effective. And most people that read it are high functioning. And so they've been kind of doing it, but they could never share it with someone else, which limits their ability to create that high functioning team around them. And what we want to do is give them language and structure for doing it.
What's your greatest hope for the work that you're doing?
That's interesting. Freedom. I'd say freedom for me first. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. No interest.
Really?
No, I'm not. Well, I am not an entrepreneur. I'm not someone that wanted to create anything. I was fortunate enough to, what I would say is self-realize at 24 years old. When I walked into my first SEAL platoon, I got to finally be me, and I finally got to fit in. Like, I got to feel normal for the first time in my life, and that's where I belonged. And after that, I don't need to do another thing my entire life. I don't need to build anything. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need any accolades. I'm good. And so you can't really want to be an entrepreneur if you're in that state. Like, it's just not really how it works. But I saw entrepreneurship as the only way to freedom, in that I knew if I went and I'd get a middle management job somewhere, I would do really well and get to the top of middle management, just based on my experience. But that's still only maybe a couple $100,000 a year. That's not enough. Like, I could do the math to say, like, for the rest of my life, that's not enough. I'm gonna have to do something else. And I wanted freedom. From the time I was 2nd grade, I was in a uniform, Catholic school from 2nd grade through high school, the Naval Academy, into the military service. Someone had told me what to wear, where to be, what to eat, how to eat, what to say, what to do my whole life. And I wanted freedom. I just wanted to be free. And so that was the other thing, is entrepreneurship was the only path to that. And then the kicker, now as an entrepreneur, I'm the least free I've ever been in my life.
Right. What's the saying that an entrepreneur will work well over 40 hours a week just to have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else?
By the way, I was just going to laugh because I have a Larry Kryptonite story that he'll laugh at. So, dirty little secret, he only owns four sets of clothes because he travels with them.
Yeah, because I don't want to make choices.
I love it. When he told me that story, I thought it was awesome.
That's me standing in a grocery store looking at 90 different choices for cereal or something. I'm like, seriously, just give me 2 or 3. I don't need all this. Although I do have more clothing in my closet. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so that my trip into entrepreneurship was for freedom. And what I found is it's very hard to be what I would consider truly free as an entrepreneur. My job as a CEO is to become irrelevant in my company. Mm-hmm. And that is a different mindset. And I'm not there yet. So my hope is that I will be irrelevant within my organization soon. And within that, not only will I create freedom for myself, but that means that everything that's in my head that has value to people they will have access to without me. And that, I think, will create freedom for many other people.
And so some of that has come out in the form of a book.
Exactly.
Is there already another book forming?
There is. I'm excited. There's two. There's two paths. So we've come across, I'd say two innovations. One innovation is the fact that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you had to have had early childhood trauma, and it's your biggest limitation.
Yep.
So that you wouldn't make the choices to become an entrepreneur and be successful, have the perseverance to be successful, unless you had something that made you abnormal as a child, which is generally trauma. That's also going to be your biggest hamstring from ever having the success you need. That is an innovation. And the process that we've designed and how we work it, I think that's going to do a lot. So that's one book. The other one, which I think even more interesting, I believe every company is missing a C-level position. And I've never heard anyone talk about this either. Where this came from is we were fulfilling a critical role within organizations. They're paying us to do this. Yet there's no name for what we did. Like people would ask you, what do you do? And in leadership development, yeah, we do some leadership development. That's coaching. We do a little bit of coaching. We do a little consulting. What is it? And so what I realized is when you look at a company like a body, you have the left arm is marketing, right? Its job is to go out, reach out into the marketplace and grab a prospect. Then that arm has to hand off to the sales arm, which is the right arm. And the right arm's job is to turn that prospect into a client that's willing to give us $1 bill for something. In a good company, marketing and sales holds on to the client while the legs of fulfillment and support move the client forward to a better future. Within that, you also have the nervous system. The nervous system of a body is leadership and management. Their job is to sense what's going on, make sense of it, and direct the body to take action. And you have the GI system. The GI system is finance, right? They consume resources and distribute energy to the body to take action. So you've got those 6 parts. Every company needs all 6 parts. If you have a body with no marketing, you've got no way to get prospects, right? If you got no sales, you can't turn the prospects into clients. If you've got one of your legs is missing, you're walking in a circle because you don't have support or you can't fulfill. If your nervous system is messed up, you're making the wrong sensing, you're taking the wrong actions. If your GI tract's messed up, you don't have enough money. So within that piece, in a larger company, there's someone in charge of that. There's a C-level position for every one of those pieces of the body. Now, within a body, if I had all that stuff going, the one thing I'm missing is blood. So blood in a company is coordination of action. I need to coordinate action between all those parts in order to do it. I have to coordinate action to distribute resources to the body. I need coordination of action to feed the nervous system so that it can make sense and direct action. Coordination of action within a company is the responsibility of everyone. And if something's the responsibility of more than one person, it's not, no one holds a responsibility for it. Who's in charge of coordination of action in a company? The CEO is responsible for it, but doesn't have the time to it. HR is not about coordination of action.
And I'm thinking project management, which often we have Joe Puz, who's been one of my longest time clients, he has been an advocate around project management. It's often not embraced by the powers that be. It's almost this ancillary thing, although it is vital and it is the blood. So if it's not...
Even project management mostly is on fulfillment.
Right?
Right? So it isn't all, like project management would be a key component of coordination
and
of
yet
action
another
in
section.
Fulfillment. Let me give you examples of where problems show up. Say Bob and Sally are in the marketing department. They don't get along. Whose job is it to fix it? That's like having a cut where it bleeds coordination of action because Bob and Susie can't get along. The CMO, the chief marketing officer, it's his responsibility that Bob and Susie get along, but he doesn't know how to change that behavior. He knows how to make marketing funnels and budgets. So who fixes that? HR doesn't fix it. The CEO isn't going to step in and fix it. The COO is in charge of operations, not fixing Bob and Susie's problem. What if the sales department sells products that the fulfillment department can't do? That happens all the time.
Right.
That's like having a tourniquet around your sales arm, right? If that handoff isn't good, you've got problems. Who fixes that? The director of sales doesn't fix it. COO doesn't fix it. We have problems. What if leadership and management can't communicate their plans effectively to the team? It's like having a noose on the neck of the body, right? You can't get the message to it. Who fixes that? No one. And so that's the problems we found that we were fixing. So what we believe is that every company should have what we refer to as a CAO, a coordination of action officer.
Yeah, you knew it. He had the right
Well,
answer.
I read his brain.
Right.
A CAO, a coordination of action officer's job is to be responsible for all coordination of action from the company to clients, inter-team, intra-team, and from leadership and management to team. And every problem is the sole responsibility of coordination of action officer to ensure it happens. And that coordination of action officer is C-level with no authority. Like they can't hire and fire. They don't have a budget. That gives them the being clean enough to go and talk to Bob and Sally, and Bob and Sally aren't scared. And their job is to use the big responsibilities that we see as one, training. So you have to develop people into understanding how to coordinate action, individual and group behavior change. So if one person's not doing what they need to do to change their behavior, if a group's not doing what they need to do, change their behavior. In roles, responsibilities, process, and procedures, right? The reason we have roles and responsibilities is so I know what he's going to do so I can coordinate action. And he can say, I'm going to do that, be responsible for it. And process and procedures ease coordination of action. And the last one is planning. Planning, the only reason we plan is to coordinate action. And so those are the tools of a CAO, are education, behavior change, roles, responsibilities, process, procedure, let's just say structure, and planning. And no company has that. No one's in charge of that for any company. And so that's what we do.
So Larry, without giving away the secrets of the book, because I want you to crush it, where does that skill set and individual lie currently in our society?
What we've found is, so what we do is we'll either we'll fulfill that role for them short term, but then we want to elevate people into it. The people that do that really well, obviously former military is pretty good at it, as long as they're emotionally intelligent. If they're not emotionally intelligent, it doesn't work, right? Because it isn't someone that's just process structure.
Got it.
You have to have a degree of emotional intelligence. The other one would be project managers are good at it. And it's the ones, project managers that have an entrepreneurial twist, right? Because they have ownership. You have to have an ownership piece to this. And they're driven. And you'll notice what I love about explaining this is there's probably 1,000 people out there who are listening, hopefully, that are like, that's me.
Yeah.
And no
I'm
one
doing
ever,
it. That's me.
That's it, right?
Absolutely.
No one's you've never had a title.
Karen just
for what
resigned
you
to
do.
herself, by the way,
Right.
everyone that's listening.
Right. Daryl, take over. I'm going to go create a niche out there for myself.
Oh,
Tomorrow she'll have CAO behind her name on everything.
And yet, to your point earlier, that when this becomes that aha moment for the folks you're working with, we're going to see change in a huge way.
Oh, in organization, because it's all the problems. Every problem you have in an organization is a behavior
It comes
problem.
back to behavior, communication, lack of structure, lack of action.
So I got dropped off here. I was just with another client. The guy that dropped me off is now it's his title. He's their CAO.
Oh,
I was going to ask what of the companies that you're working with, and you're sharing this knowledge and the guidance around creating this position, you're finding then organizations are like, yes, and let's do this.
Because every time I talk about it, the leadership's like, those are the problems I deal with that no one fixes. And it's all the stuff that no one has time to do.
Yep. Well, and the CEO, any of those C-level, C-suite executive leaders, while they may have some emotional intelligence, we hope they would, they're not all equipped to hold that role. And I love the fact that you're talking about the role for this person there's no budget. What you said, a couple other things.
No budget, no authority. They can't hire and fire.
Right.
They don't
They
manage
become a
anyone
facilitator.
directly.
It's a facilitative role.
Yep. And that role. So what we'll end up doing is we generally hold that role first. Then we'll either elevate or hire someone specifically with it and train them. The best part about this, in my view, is it's a team role. So if you're really good, so I talked about, we have the education, behavior, let's call it structure and planning. Those are 4 very different skill sets and strengths. When we're doing this, the CAO's job is a triage nurse. Their job is to figure out where is their blood, where is a tourniquet, where is there a noose, where are we missing part of a leg. Their job is not to fix it. That's where they'll come to us, or they could hire other people. But being able to say like, oh, this is a planning issue. We need help with strategic planning because our nervous system can't communicate its intent to the body well. So you hire someone else to do it. That person's job is triage, not solving every problem. And so we can develop them over time to be able to do more of those things. They can learn to educate. They can learn systematic behavior change. But what's amazing, what I love seeing it for the executives that have this is as soon as they finally get to say like, I've got a problem with the IT department. They constantly think that we don't listen to them, right? It's us versus them all the time. CAO, go fix that. Like, go change that. And that's their job, is to go in and fix it. Or in fulfillment, we don't have clear roles and responsibilities for these 3 positions. So they're kind of just all wishy-washy. We don't feel like we're getting a return on that investment for those people. Go define their roles, responsibilities, their actions, their KPIs. And this person goes, does that. So that's where it's all the things, if you're in management or leadership of a company, all the things that need to get done that you really don't want to do and don't have time to do, that's CAO roles.
The things that have you laying awake at night.
Where it's going to cause problems.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, I'm excited for that book. Like, I'm excited to bring that to the world because it will solve so many problems for companies and like people like you, or it's like, you get to like, that's me. Yes. I've been this person and now I know what I do.
Yep. Yeah. And I've had a variety of C-level executive positions and have shown up in the space that you're talking about.
Solving all the problems.
Right. And yet it's taken away from the other things that my title said I was supposed to be there for. Yep. Fascinating. We are at the top of the hour, if you can believe it. Wow.
Where'd that go?
I don't know. I'm amazed.
Larry, you need to talk faster next time.
Talk too much, maybe.
No, it was
great.
It was ideal, and I wish we had another 2 hours. I want a board meeting a little bit, so we can't. And I know you've got a flight to catch. What have we not asked, or anything else that you want to say? And then I want.
I don't even know where to begin because I could go on for hours, like you said. So I think probably what we should ask is, how do people find out about you and your organization, Larry?
Totally. So right now, the easiest way is through the book. So How Leadership Actually Works is the title of the book. And there's a website with the same title. So howleadershipactuallyworks.com. Go there. That's probably the easiest way to get in contact with us. We, within that place, there's links to the book. We also have links to tools. We heavily use assessments to take the specific triage knowledge out of the individual and empower our clients to be able to know where they need to put their time and attention. So we have some assessments there. And if you need support or help, if there's anything that you heard, like, I need to talk to someone about getting a CAO, you can find that, contact us there. That's the best way to go.
Well, and like you said before, reiterate it, you are virtual. So
we service anyone everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why the word generous keeps showing up for me. And I know why, but I don't know how to articulate it. You are very generous with your time, with your thought, your experience. And it sounds like even just the website where the book is located, you're very generous with the offerings to say, hey, here's the information.
All of
we
it.
could go and run with it, all of it on your own if you want to. and come and play with us. Who's the author? I want to say Emotion Code.
Yep.
I felt like that about his book as well. He will train people on how to do emotion code and muscle testing and all that. And also, you can certainly do it yourself. He's very kind and generous that way. And I feel much the same about you.
I've gotten to know that guy pretty well through one of the masterminds. He's been a good guy from the same concept. And where I got to that is, we're very clear that our purpose is permanent and positive change in people's lives. And we can't do that if people don't hear what we have. And so we made the decision very early on that instead of trying to protect our content, that we were going to be absolutely free with it. And if people I look at it this way, if someone takes it and steals it and says it's theirs and they use it to better someone's life, I've brought more good into the world. They weren't going to be a client anywhere. I don't care. And so we've gone that route. So we partner with anyone. We share content with anyone. Mm-hmm. If you have problems, we have school programs for middle school and leadership. If you need it for your kids, we give it to you. And so we've done that. And we know if we give that much good, if we live to our purpose of permanent positive change, it doesn't matter if we make money or not. We'll have enough people out there that we've helped that we'll be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Fantastic.
By the way, Karen's glowing right now.
I am. I am seriously ecstatic.
I just thought she had a new experience at the tanning booth today, but no, she's glowing.
No tanning booth, just in awe to learn from both of you. And again, you're helping me with some language that I've always had within me. I just haven't had the ability to articulate it quite as smoothly.
Use it. You have free rights to use any of that. And
I can't wait to read the book.
I'm fine.
Yeah, no, I won't. I won't do that. All right. So the website one more time for the book.
HowLeadershipActuallyWorks.com.
And the website, another website is SEAL Team Leaders.
Yep,
You're
that's
also
our
on
company's
LinkedIn.
name.
Yeah, Larry Yatch. I was going to say Latch. Larry Yatch, Yatch. Thank you for making time for us today. And who is your assistant that helped us coordinate? I feel like Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Shout out to Sarah because she was really great about making sure.
I just hope she's listening.
She better. I'm going to make sure of it. And thank you for not only the introduction and also because I said to JJ, like a text message, you got to come and be here.
Yeah, for those of you that are inspired by what you heard today, it's a great experience. That's all I can tell everyone. So, and I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
It's getting good. We're not even the really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't even cracked me over the head yet. Opened it up a little bit. But yeah.
But have you already seen in his eyes, like you described earlier, like,
oh yeah.
He sees it all the time.
He's quick because we're similar. We have similar minds. Yeah. And so he's one of the quicker studies, which is fun for me.
So good.
Guinea pig.
I love it.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. You have been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.